All right, look at that. Now it's the red button is flashing. It means we're recorded. That's what I like to hear. So this has to be something that's been a long time coming. God dang, I've been trying to get my best man. I got two best men in the world. One right here, another one up in San Francisco. Fighting for my life, trying to get this guy on the podcast. And I tell you what, coronavirus has shaken some stuff up to get you on the podcast. Mr. David Lipp in the building. What's up, my man?
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. Long overdue and so happy to be here with you. Happy Sunday.
Yeah, back at you. Happy Sunday, feastful Sunday, fattened up a little bit, had some food with the fam, went on a good bike ride around the Las Vegas Strip. It's quite fun, man. How about you? Anything exciting besides everything we're going to get to here in just a little bit?
Oh man, well today's Sunday, so I had a little bit of a slower morning. That's okay once a week for me.
Yeah.
And got through some work stuff, worked out. It's pretty hot out here in Los Angeles. And now I'm here kind of about to grab some food after this,
So I'm gonna bring all of these folks that are gonna hear this up to speed, so they can kind of get some context about sort of what's happening here. David has been one of my best buds for several years now, and when people really kind of understand the journey, at least my own personal journey, I've been through some pretty hectic shit to say, and this man's always been there as a friend, as a leader, as just an all-around great guy. And I said that for years upon years. He originally helped me put together the restaurants that I had. Well, I shouldn't say put together, but helped me find the deals and sort of get in bed with the people that were selling them. And we've really had a roller coaster ride together. And now that we're amid this coronavirus thing, I thought it would be such a great time for David to finally get on the show, not only as one of my best buds, but also as a budding entrepreneur, man. And I'm so excited to share with everybody listening, your journey and your, I would say, meteoric rise as an entrepreneur right now, as a small business owner, and really help people understand kind of what you've gone through, how your mindset's been. And I think most importantly, David, one thing I want you to do is act like you've been on the phone before. Because dude, this is just like a normal conversation we have any other day, every week, like we regularly talk. And I think one other cool thing to acknowledge is that David and I were speaking the other day on the phone about how David needs to get out and start telling his story some more. And this could be one of his first quote unquote reveals, releases, or what have you, sharing situations. And so we're very honored and privileged, David, to get you to this point. My man.
I love it. We go way back. This is long overdue, and I'm super happy to be here, super happy to tell my story and to compliment you and, what you're doing here, which is, superb, super exciting with all the exciting you've got going on, and can't wait to share that with you. So we have great conversations often, and we always walk away each with something to take away that's productive and, gets us both motivated.
And that's the key right there. And I think people, I've said it many times, folks, if you're listening, the quality of your conversations is very instrumental in I'd say making great progress in all areas of life. And so David and I have those periodically, and they're pretty intense and very long. For the real reason we're here, this is as I've named it now, Curbside Content Podcast. There's a reason for that, curbside. Street smarts on the go, or street smart pickup and delivery. I'm still working on that, but just to get in motion. David, you had made a big decision a few years ago to become an entrepreneur, leaving a gig in commercial real estate, making great money, crushing it. And I've been there from day one, even way before that, to watch your journey leading up to you having a 7-figure business, multi-million-dollar business now with a shit ton of ups and downs. And right now, I want to know so much about how you're thinking, what you're doing, and more importantly, because it's a great opportunity for people to consider getting into business, assuming that they are not paralyzed by everything that's going on. I want you to share kind of how you're approaching this in your own business and really bring some life to the journey of a small business owner well on his way to building a massive company. So let's just dive in right there.
Yeah, so being an entrepreneur is my life. And as a young kid growing up, I was always into earning money, trying to buy things, working multiple jobs, whether it be, refereeing baseball as my first job, while doing that, working at the park concession stand, then, got an internship at an attorney law firm with one of my best friend's fathers, even working through college with my fraternity and interning in real estate offices. So work to me has never been the issue. It's always been, what am I going after? And entrepreneurship has always been part of my blood. So when I started my career in Las Vegas in commercial real estate at 22 years old, that was my kind of opening into a new city, new world, new profession. And it really forced me to adapt and to make it happen. And a couple years in, I was able to do so, working as a commercial real estate broker. And I understood the landscape and was able to make it through the downturn in 2008, and grow my career, to higher levels. And during that time, I was still an entrepreneur, although I was working for a big company. I was self-employed, and my partners and I, friends, partners, we started buying our own real estate over the last, couple years, and that really took off. And so that was my real first step into entrepreneurship on a bigger level, which was purchasing real estate of all kinds: small houses, little shopping centers, little apartment buildings, vacant land, flipping, holding, the whole thing. So me and my partner still do that to this day.
And the turning point, because what you're up to today, let me just bring people up to speed. David is now partner and owner in a growing company in Calabasas, California, right in the heart and center of where all the super celebs and fancy folks and the rich people drive up and style the Kardashians. I mean, you can go right down the list. In fact, many of them are customers at his store. Has launched a smaller fashion boutique store that's primarily selling handbags and shoes at a very premium point with some of the most lavish, I should say, luxury brands in the world. And David, you launched that company years ago with your partner who came from that space, and you had really no idea what the hell you were getting into. So I want you to really go into the whole, okay, I'm getting ready to transition to a space. I have no idea what I'm getting ready to do. I'm terrified and I got to jump. And talk us through that process, dude, because I remember those days pretty vividly where you were like, oh man, what do I got to do? How am I going to do this? A lot of uncertainty, right? I think then that's where we're at today with a lot of folks right now. Help us understand how
Sure.
you were thinking about it, what you did to jump, and really how it ended up paying off for you looking back now today.
Sure, sure. So I had a successful real estate career for 10 years out of Las Vegas, and I moved that into California eventually, my last 2 years in it. And I'm turning 30 years old. This is 2014, and my mom passes away. Brought my family very close, and it kind of made me reevaluate what I was doing. My career at the time in real estate was going well. I was making more money than ever, but it really wasn't about that. It was more about, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? Kind of what am I doing? And I wasn't satisfied with my profession because it didn't I wasn't inspired so much where I was going with the people I was working with, and I knew there was something else. So started digging and talking and trying to figure out what that next move was. And people thought I was crazy, but after a lot of searching, I decided to partner with my best friend of 30 years, who I grew up with, Jason Salstein. And he's got a really extensive background in women's fashion luxury. So I know him, we speak 3 times a day since we're, kids. And I knew the ups and downs of the business that he was in. And I saw an opportunity where, if I could get this, retail store concept out here in Los Angeles, it's very unique, very exclusive distribution with some of the best brands in the world, like you mentioned. And we were able to kind of put this whole business together, where Jason is the fashionista, he's the visionary, he's really the brains, and I'm more of the execution business side of it. So we partner perfectly because, as a partnership, he handles the fashion side and I'm the business. And so we opened that store in 2016. And we're 3 years in, and jumping into our third year. It has been an up and down journey, and I'm happy to go through the ins and outs. And it's been quite a journey going from a commercial real estate career to operating a luxury boutique in Calabasas, California.
How nervous were you when you first started? I mean, when you were getting ready to pivot from real estate to this unknown.
For a while before we before we opened the business, I was still working in real estate the with with us pushing forward on the Kingdom, which is the name of the store. And at the point where we signed a 10-year lease, multi-million dollar lease, is when that was, when the real, the bullet hit me, and I realized that this is, no turning back. And like anything else in life, you make it happen, and you decide, and you go with that, and you're committed. So I knew that for me to commit, it would have to be this and all the other things that came along with it, putting the business together, raising capital, hiring, business plans, financials, a million different things. And, I took that plunge, was definitely nervous, definitely wasn't sure. There is no book for this kind of thing, but you jump in, and you got to tell yourself, when I commit, I make it happen.
And that's what I'm trying to stress here on this new show I've launched, is the street smarts part of it, where you can't teach this stuff in school. The stuff that you've been going through, even you've had me wide awake to it, where I'm like, wow, dude, this guy is really getting his ass kicked, but is relentless and won't put it down and just keeps fighting forward. So I I remember the days back when you moved back over towards the Grove, and you and Jason were living in the same apartment early on, right? And people don't know that these are kind of the early beginning stages of building a business, where you guys are living in the same place. Didn't Jason move out from Miami? It was like, okay, we're in this together. You're investing all your money, literally all of your own money, into this, basically showing your full commitment. And you went and also raised capital from friends and family. Is that how you got started, right?
Exactly. So we raised almost $1 million from friends and family, my own personal money. A lot of it went into this, and at that point, yes, Jason and I are fully committed to this with personal guarantees, not only for operating the lease, but also with business financial partners as well. So it's not the first time I have raised money through real estate syndications. A couple of years back, my partners and I had raised capital, so it was a skill that I had, and luckily with a good network, we were able to put the plan together, get in front of the right people, and tell the right story. And it's been quite a journey. Still, all of them are involved today.
What do you think were some of the skills outside of what you just said from real estate that helped you obviously get in front of people and raising money? What are some other skills that transferred well from real estate to you being able to credit some success on the business development side, or were there not there that many? And again, like we said earlier, just getting this thing going is, we've been radically growing from day one on our respective journeys. And so we've constantly been digesting and consuming personal growth books, you more business now focused and what have you, but there's been an evolution for sure. What are some of those essential skills that you've realized have been completely necessary and that have helped you?
Yeah. So my focus when I was in commercial real estate was in the retail property type. I was leasing shopping centers, um, was in Las Vegas, and then it moved to the Western region, so California, Arizona, Nevada. So I became very familiar with leasing, leases, landlord mindset, anything that had to do with the retail business, I was fully aware of. So when I decided to take the plunge and go into retail, I did understand what banks would want to see. I understood what investors would want to hear and see, landlords. So I was able to secure us, an A plus shop location and an A plus trophy asset in Calabasas, and that certainly was the only route to go based on our tenant distribution mix and what we were offering to the customer and who we wanted to appeal to. So that has helped tremendously with my relationship with the landlord over the years, as well as securing the space and just a general understanding of retail and how it should operate with my history.
When you guys get up and rolling, what's your first, like, oh shit, like, this is a lot harder than I imagined. Oh my God, I have to make some quick changes. We got to fix some things. And that hasn't stopped, by the way. I don't think it ever will. But can you go back and kind of remember what was going on there and what happened? Shed some light on the process?
Yeah, one of the things that probably could have been a lot more difficult, but we lucked out, and this has to do with the previous question, not to go back, but we built a store. We had to gut a space that was previously occupied by a papyrus paper store, and we had to fully gut it and deal with the landlord on issues with that. So luckily, with my experience in negotiating leases for 10 years, I was aware of what would be tolerable for both us and the landlord, and we were able to get through it. So we luckily got open, for the most part on time, which is very, very challenging in any business. Timing and merchandise arriving, things like that. But probably the one of the harder things for me was, staffing the store and knowing what to do with that staff. So there's no book that teaches you how to open a store and how to run your ship, and that was something that was on the go. And one of my attributes, I'd say, is stepping into positions that I know are mine and just putting my best foot forward. So like anything else, I showed up and figured it out, worked hard at it, and we were able to uh, you know get our people aligned, our salespeople, our inventory people, everybody involved in the business. We had several employees and salespeople since day one. So that was dealing with people would probably be one of the more difficult challenges we faced.
Yeah. Of course, the people part is always, and by the way, as we both know of the scaling up method, people is a key fraction of the pie. There's four fractions, right? It's one of the fourth, 1/4. That sounds a little crazy out there, but trust me, that's just math.
Absolutely.
um, Being that you've got to this point, and we'll save the juicy stuff for later as we talk about kind of what's happened in this coronavirus crisis. You've had a lot of bumpy things along the way too. I mean, I can't even begin to explain how many different times you've kind of had to reassess where you were, go back, have tough conversations, talk back to your family and friends as partners, go raise new money, and constantly be chasing this next round in order to keep the business afloat. And by the way, that's just part of the process. So there's no defeat in that. And so in your case, you're growing, you're getting better. What do you say to these folks that are out there right now thinking about how they can get a business going and sort of set proper expectations so that they don't feel that there's something in their way? Because you can basically say, hey, look, it's kind of normal. And don't think about it just from a retail business. Let's just talk about in general, kind of the things you've learned, because that's the facts. You've learned this from your own hands-on, boots on the ground type of situation. I think that's what's most important, is because you've done it. And you never know where somebody's going to pull that key value point out and be able to really take that to their advantage.
Yeah, a lot of good points in there and a lot to talk about really, but I would share that it's so important to be aligned with your vision and strategy on how to get there, and planning is everything.
Hmm.
We've had to create 3 different business plans while we're open because things change and we're going different directions. And so on one hand, that's a very exciting and a very nice skill to possess, which is be able to pivot and to move a different direction. On the other hand, if you don't stick to a plan, you kind of go renegade and it gets a little crazy. So we did have a plan to begin, and things definitely veered off that path. And about a year and a half in, we wanted to put the cart before the horse, acted a little premature, and we wanted to grow because we had such high, sales numbers, and we thought we were going in the right direction to expand in the near future. So, that took us down a path that wasn't, meant to be. And so we backed down and, decided to focus on our current existing space, which is 1,300 square feet in Calabasas retail store. And, next place for us is to focus on going online, which we did do in the last 3 months. So we have our own Shopify website, and we are currently selling on that platform in addition to the store.
Now, check this out, just so they know. You, in your first year out of 1,300 square feet, did over $1 million in sales, correct?
Uh, we're very lucky to we've exceeded $1 million in our first year. Yeah, we did multiple $1 million in our first 12 months. Yes.
Yeah. So just so you all know, that's almost like shocking for a company to come out of the gates like that. So, that's why it's important. That's why I wanted to have you on here for other people to realize really what's taking place. In addition to that, obviously just because you do $1 million plus in sales doesn't mean you're profitable, right? So this, I think we're bringing the reality to a business, especially a business in growth, assuming the tweaks and the adjustments are happening constantly, is where you really start to fine tune it. So where now you take those, now it's, much further along, and now you're in year 3, going on year 4?
We're about to hit our 3rd year.
About to hit 3rd year. Okay. Yeah. So as you continue to grow your sales, all these tweaks in between are going to start to get your bottom line a lot fatter, so that as that bottom line fattens, now we're a profitable business. Now, okay, now we got some runway, and we're breathing a little bit better and sleeping better at night. However, what you said earlier, just a few seconds ago, was important about the planning. Tell us, David, because, everybody's like, well, how did he do that? I always want to figure out, how did you put that plan together? What were your steps that you took, right? Like, who did you go to? Somebody? Did you pay money to people to have these plans put together? Like, where were you headed with that, so that people know, like, kind of how you arranged it from what your experience is?
So before I decided to jump into this business, I I worked on a business plan to see if it was viable, to show it to some people, to kind of put the work in and do my homework. And I've always been really good at doing such. And that allowed me to do my homework and test the water, if you will. And the way I did that was I hired a business plan builder company, paid them a couple $1,000s. I contributed most of the material that went in, but they were able to put it together in a format that was standard in the industry for business planning. And that's what we did. We hired a designer in addition, and we built a business plan that we were able to show ourselves first to make sure we wanted to do this. Number 2, we were able to show our friends and family who were, going to help fund this business and become partners. And then 3rd, we had to show that to the landlord and some of the brands that we carry in order to secure the space, obviously, that we lease, and to get the brands to commit to giving us distribution in the market that we're in.
My God. I'm going to hit you.
It's a beast. A business plan it's so vital. I would recommend always doing the work up front, and you'll learn so much. And it's, you don't want to be spending a lot of your money, other people's money, jumping into something that you don't know, where you're really going. Business plan allows you to do that.
How are you all adapting right now with coronavirus hitting the retail sector pretty hard?
Yeah, I mean, coronavirus is definitely an unprecedented thing. It's all new to everybody, and it's quite a shock. We closed our doors to the retail store on March 16th, and we are just navigating day to day through the treacherous waters of being a luxury retail boutique, obviously not open to the public, also not being an essential business. So the fear of retail is obviously hurting right now, and who's buying Saint Laurent boots, or who's buying a Fendi coat, things like that we carry. But to our surprise, We do sell internationally and domestically through one of our dropship partners, farfetch.com. And the activity has picked up quite a bit because people around the world are still shopping, believe it or not. And although we're closed, we're able to access the back of the store and box product to ship to these people. And with our own website, we're also starting to sell on there as well. So we're able to navigate through this with, some sales. Obviously, are the bulk of our sales from our in store are not happening, but everybody's in the same boat. So all expenses for the most part have been put on hold, and we're navigating like everybody else. Communication. We're working with the government to acquire some loans that they're offering, which everyone's kind of standing in line for that. And we got to wait this thing out and be able to pivot as soon as information is out there, and stay positive. Positive mindsets, everything.
Yeah, it really is. And that's so true. The one thing I noticed, and it's not that I'm surprised, but you've been very poised. Many of our conversations, how you doing? I'm good. I'm good, man. I feel great. Like that's been the attitude, like you just said, positive attitude. What has allowed you to maintain that? Like, what has it been that you've done that, especially under all the uncertainty with, potential business at risk, tons of partners involved, you had new funding that came in recently, which you feel free to jump into some of that stuff, really kind of bring the story up to speed. Where does your confidence in this whole thing come from? Because you got it. So that's important.
Sure. Two parts to that. So to your point, funding, yes. Just last week, actually, our business was able to secure an SBA loan, which we have been wanting and needing for quite some time. And due to the virus, we were able to qualify a lot quicker and for a larger amount than, just a month or two ago. So, things aligned for us. We're very thankful for, the United States government, and through a tough time for the world, for health reasons, that is first priority. But outside of that, which we didn't wish this upon anybody, but outside of that, this virus has allowed us some opportunities. So we're thankful that those panned out for us, and we know that we're one of the chosen few that have received some funding at this time. So that's all good. To the other point, the positive mindset is everything. Again, I've developed that over the last couple of years, just being kind of self-aware, and my desire to grow and to better myself, and now translating that into bettering others is really the entrepreneurial mindset. So first rule of being an entrepreneur is if you're scared of problems and you won't face them head on, it's not going to work out, because you're going to be faced with 100 problems a day, and they're never going to go away. There will always be problems, coming your direction, and that's not for everybody. But I accepted that a long time ago, that nothing's perfect. I can't complain to anybody, because this is what I signed up for. And if I'm not going to do it, then no one's going to do it. So I was able to train myself to become that leader that the people who are a part of my organization look up to and want to work with and want to work for. And luckily, we've built a culture where, the people love being at work. They love working for us. They love each other. And that's a really, really strong foundation. So staying positive, self-discipline, and really not batting down to, problems that may arise, because they always will arise. And the bigger the numbers, the harder the problems are always.
I think we just got a quote out of you, man. I mean, it could almost be a David Lipp original. And let me see if I can roll it back properly. But it said something along the lines of, "There's always going to be 100 problems a day, and they're never going to go away." Dude, that was a fat line right there. I like that a lot.
Man,
I don't know if he said 100.
Life.
I don't know if he said 100 problems, but he said something about problems a day. I don't know what the number was, but I know that it was, they'll never go away. But you're right. And that's what life, I think.
Isn't that life? Isn't, I mean, that's life for sure. And that's growing up, but in entrepreneurship, it's constant, and it doesn't bog me down so much because I just expect it, and my expectations are realistic, and to expect that they're not going to be there, those issues, you
Yeah,
know,
did you go in with that attitude? Do you remember saying, all right, I'm going to go into business, and this is like, when did you get to that point? Did you have to meet some sort of adversity along the way where you're like, dude, I have no other option because there's so much pressure on me,
I,
family and friends are involved? Or did you know this before you walked in?
I
Knowing,
did, I did, I don't come from I come from a very great upbringing, great family, great city, Miami, Florida, great friends, very fortunate with all that, but nothing was really given to me. And, you know, there's been a lot of situations, but one that stands out to me on that note specifically is when I'm 24 years old and I'm a couple years into real estate and the market tanked, and me and my buddy at the time were saying to ourselves, hey, we really want to take advantage of these low prices. We're in real estate, we want to make money, we know how, that's how it's done, we want to buy these condos and we want to flip them. And we put a plan together, and they were so inexpensive, and this was in Las Vegas, and we put this plan together and it made a lot of sense to us. And we went ahead and we started meeting with people to give us money, because at the time we had just, me and my buddy were young, we didn't really have our own money, and we were saying, well, let's go get thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. And this is how we make money, right? This is real estate, this is syndication, this is the big leagues. So we meet with some people, and answers are no. We get said no to quite a few times, and it didn't derail us from our plan, but what it did was kind of let us understand that nothing's going to be just given to you. No one's just out there ready to give you millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever it is. That doesn't happen. So we switched our plan and we said, all right, we're not getting this money. So in a short period of time, we saved enough money each. We both went in for about 20,000 each, and we bought our own condo without anybody else being a part of it. And we did that because we didn't have another option. And at that point, it was kind of taking control of the situation, right?
hmm.
We can't get it done by just no one's going to gift us this. It's not just going to like show up on our laps, and we've tried and we've pitched, and no. So that's not working. This is our time. And that's how we bought our first condo in Las Vegas for $32,000. We each put in $20K, left some room for renovation, and we bought a condo. It was $32,000, sold it for a little bit more than what we bought it for, and took that profit and bought another one. And then we did the same thing. We took the profit and then we bought a bigger house. And then it kept growing from there over a couple years' time. So that's how we started in buying real estate, is getting said no to. And it was embarrassing. And I always remember that. But I also remember that we made good decisions on how to keep pushing forward regardless.
Yeah, that's strong. And that, let's just say that it's true. Nobody's going to give you anything. That's a fact. However, there also is, in your case, it sounds like you guys pumped and pushed as hard as you could, and nobody really did give you anything until you just had to do it on your own. And now there's another circumstance where people will eventually choose to invest in you, support you in one way or another. Now, what does that equal? Like, what is that? Does that mean that you have to become better at selling them? Does that mean you have to become better at presenting in a way, shape, or form? Like, how does that translate? Obviously, nothing's going to come easy, but what do you need to do to help make yourself better positioned so that exchange can happen better in the future?
In the topic of raising capital and getting financing for your business, it's constantly a positioning of strong sales and telling a good story. And so that's my responsibility in the business, as well as my business partner, Jason. And we've certainly been in front of a lot of different people, businesses, looking for expansion capital. And that has been quite a challenge over the years. So, getting this loan just recently is a big, win for us. But, somebody told me early on, when you're starting a business, if you don't have enough cash to last you 18 months, then you need to be looking for money, which basically means nobody has that kind of cash, which means you're always looking for money.
Mm.
So being on the hunt for capital is always a part of being an entrepreneur, because unless you've got, endless, buckets of money, which most people don't, you got to find it some way. And ideally you're profitable and you reinvest and you don't need to look for any other money. And I'm not talking about just going to, some wealthy people and asking for some money. That's part of it. But, what's your credit situation, credit lines, credit cards, business lines of credit? What's your, longer term financing situation like? What are you able to get money, from your friends and family at what rate, and what's their tolerance? What are businesses looking to, possibly be a strategic partner and come in, to fund and possibly provide resource for your business? So the financing side is something that I am aware of over, years and being in real estate, but that aspect of the business is so crucial to have a grip on and to not be scared to get in front of people.
Mm. The I remember, where the hell was I? Was I riding my bike and you called me and you said you had just bought a book on how to present better and how to speak in public because you were preparing to get in front of people. And I remember exactly where I was now. I was over on Hualapai and Russell here in Las Vegas. Almost about, I don't know, a year ago almost, I bet. And you called, I was weird. It's weird how you remember these things, right? But you called me like, I just bought this book. Remind me of the name again. You said it was a red cover. Is that?
Yeah, you're right. So I read the book. It's called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff.
Pitch Anything. There we go. Right. So my point of that was like, look, dude, this guy's always trying to get himself out in front of what's coming down the pipe, which could be called anticipation, right? The other thing that I wanted to sort of talk about was you having to make a bunch of tough decisions and sort of do things that I have come to know for you that have been uncomfortable conversations, a lot of those, right? I mean, that's, fairly obvious. So help us understand kind of a few of those really tough decisions that you've had to make during this journey of building this business in a short 3 years, really. That's, again, I cannot stress the importance of this because I think that it's very nice. Here's what I've learned, right? This is where I'm so excited about this thing. I truly am, because I have spent a lot of time talking to people that have businesses that are multimillionaires. They've got, 50 million, $100 million companies, and it's great. They're 20, 30 years into the process. They sold the company or they still have whatever. But to have somebody that's right here, literally in the mix of growing a company from ground zero to now 3 million in 3 years, that's a very ideal time frame to get fucking real about what it takes, right? And that's why it's so critical right now. And the conditions of the economic situation of, people that are going to have to go find ways to become entrepreneurs, start businesses. They may have businesses right now. Look, the whole world is focused in on small business right now, David, right? Isn't that true? Oh my God, small business is going out. People can't get their loans. And here we are, dude. And you're talking about circumstances on your own end where you've made it out and it's actually going to benefit your business. But the point of this, again, isn't that it hasn't always been that way, dude. You've been kicking and scratching and clawing the entire time and still have a good head on your shoulders. But dude, talk to me about some of the tough stuff, tough decisions you've had to make in the middle of all this.
Tough decisions are almost an everyday, but I would consider some of the tougher ones to make as a business partner is, going back to your partners when there's a problem and telling them, good or bad news. And no one really likes to, give that bad news, but as my duty, my financial responsibility to my business and my partners who are a part of that, sometimes there is, bad news that needs to be said. Very difficult to, communicate to a group of people. Everybody wants to know everything, and that's a challenge I wasn't expecting, jumping into this type of business. Dealing with people would be another one. Of course, we built such a strong culture, and we've had to let go of some people along the way, and that's never an easy thing to have to fire somebody, and it's happened a few times. And I all I can do is understand where the mistakes were made, and try not to do it again, and improve going forward. So things like that, clarity and accountability are two big words that are necessary for dealing with employees and things like that. So tough decisions. Yeah. And then you've got the partnership. I have my business partner is also my best friend, and we don't see eye to eye at all times. Him being a visionary, very passionate about everything detail oriented, and me being, kind of the opposite personality of, this is a business and numbers are numbers, trying to balance those conversations when we speak, 3, 5, 10 times a day. There could be a lot of butting heads, but, we love each other. And at the end of the day, we have achieved a lot as a team, and this is not mine or his business, but we think, with compounding the growth and time and just, continued 110% each day, we'll make this into, a very successful and large business.
Yeah. And I think it's a good time for me to say, listen, people, if you want some more, listen, if I'm not answering the question, because again, I know almost all the 3 years and then some, well before that, about what he's been doing. Feel free to drop me a line, and then we can ask more direct question that you might be having on your mind, because that might help you really kind of climb a wall and get on the other side of it. But David, I do know that one fascinating thing that I want people out there to think about, where this could be a very sour subject for some people because of that interference that these people might not want to go into with their customers and their family. Number one, you raise the money from your friends and family, which people would argue in that both directions. And then in subsequent capital raises, you actually raised money from your customers, right? And so I think it's important that people understand that, your customers end up becoming your biggest fans. And in David's case, there are people that are bought into his story and bought into the partners and their vision, and it ended up benefiting you. Is that true?
That is true. And in seeking advice for how to raise additional capital, most people did recommend, taking a look at the people closest to you, and, that once we were open included the customers. And we were successful in partnering with some of our own top customers at the store. And for those reasons, they became bought into the concept and the people behind it. And it really worked out very well for us. And yes, that can be risky, but anytime you bring in any money, it's always risky. And it happened to be good fits across the board, and we're very thankful that we were able to get them a part of the company and help us achieve going forward.
What did you do in the early days to keep the doors open? Like, dude, what were you grinding away at? I think it's important. People out there are like, I gotta start a business. How do I muster through? How do I keep my doors open? Again, every business is a little different, but I think there are some commonplace areas where you can tend to pull thoughts and ideas from other people that are going through it. But in your case, going back down memory lane.
Oh man. Well, cash flow is something we haven't talked about, but it's a major issue with most businesses, is cash flow. How do I pay these bills that are due now, but I'm sitting on product which doesn't equate to cash, and it's only selling X amount per day. How do I manage all this? I'm a pretty on the fly and learn by failure type guy. So I just jumped in and managed it the best I could. And doing that for a couple of years, we've, taken on a stance of let's get this a little more professionally run. So we've dipped into, hiring an accounting department to help us through. But nevertheless, cash flow, managing that cash flow has always been a problem. And, there have been times where, myself and Jason haven't been able to pay ourselves. And that's pretty common in small businesses and entrepreneurship where, what I did make sure in 3 years is that not one time have we ever missed a payroll for our people. And I pride myself and Jason for the management of this because there have been times where it's been very close to, we have got nothing and sales are down and cash flow is tight. But not one time did we ever miss a payroll for our staff. And that's just not what you do to the people that, run the bit or help run the business. And, but cash flow is there's no book on how to manage it at the beginning. And it's a real struggle. How to kind of get through it. We had to go back to partners at times, and I had to dip into my own personal funds towards the business more than I thought I would. But because this is, what I'm committed to, I wasn't afraid to do that. And without, those things, we wouldn't have been able to afford the bills and just from a timing perspective.
Yeah, now you're getting into the meat and potatoes, baby. Come on now. The stuff that people are like, oh, thank God he's telling me what I think I already knew. Oh shit. I might be broke for 6 months or a year. And remember, people, I think, David, we've talked about this too. It's okay to be broke because that just means you don't have money. You don't want to be poor because poor is a mindset, right? I'm sure many of you may have heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're unequivocally growing and learning and like fed up with being broke and you're on your way, the money will come, right? It's an exchange of value. And so that's the important part. So as an entrepreneur, I would say prepare to be broke. As I've learned from David and many of the other people that I've been fortunate enough to share time with. But the thing is, David, that I think it's kind of cool when you shared with me the story about how you were like, I mean, on the brink of devastation and you got a little surprise deposit. You want to kind of share with us that story? Because it's kind of, and it's happened a couple of times, no?
Yeah, and these stories, they happen and there is no hiding from them. These real issues happen with nearly every small business. And the reason I know that is because I'm in a business group called Entrepreneurs Organization, EO. And this is a place where you've got to be qualified to be a part of it. I'm in the Los Angeles chapter, and it aligns you and puts you in a kind of a club with other business owners that hit a certain criteria. And through that is 150 members in Los Angeles, all businesses doing over $1 million. And what you find is these things really do happen. And pretty much every business goes through, how are we going to cover payroll next week? And how are we going to pay this vendor? And oh my God, rent's due. I mean, everyone's, kind of grinding it. And once I realized that, these are normal issues and, all you can do is solve the problem to your best of your ability and put your best feet forward, and hopefully it works out. But that support system has really given me the backing, the resource, the confidence to say, okay, it's not just me. This does happen, and these people aren't going to solve my problem. That's not what it's there for. But they are there to share their experience and let me know, how somebody that they knew got out of something like that, or how they did themselves. And to your point, yeah, there was a time, a year and a half ago or so, and we had a payroll due. It was a pretty substantial one every other week. I mean, it was north of $20,000, and I wasn't sure that it was going to cover. And I thought this was going to be the one time where I'm not going to be able to afford the payroll and we're going to write a bad check. And, you know, through the grace of God, that same night we received an unknown deposit from our Farfetch sales channel that was able to cover the entire payroll. And I didn't expect that to come. For some reason, I didn't know that it was there, or it hit paid early or something like that. And that certainly solved our problem. So it was pretty unbelievable, but that was probably the brink of a big problem waiting to tumble down, you know, a huge hill. So we avoided that, and it worked out like it always does.
And then the second time, in terms of raising more money, you had a customer that pretty much came in at the 11th hour, and really, as you're thinking again, oh shit, here we go again. They said, yeah. I remember that day when we talked, you're like, they said they were in.
Yeah. Yeah. So about 9 months ago, we were raising capital and needed to really get out of some debt that we put on, and it had become problematic. And, you know, we had met with several people, and we're starting to get, you know, a little concerned, not a little concerned, a lot concerned. And sure enough, at the 11th hour, you know, our customer, you know, decided to partner with us and help us out with, you know, a big, you know, hole that we were in. And that was one of the huge turning points for us as a business. And, you know, that was a real savior at the time, you know, when we needed it. One thing that is important is, you know, Manny, you and I are really adamant about acquiring new skills and self, you know, improvement, development. We read everything out there, and that's great. And I will always continue to improve and grow in that way. But it's not always what you can acquire. It sometimes is understanding what you're not good at and simply, you know, pivoting to the right move. So for instance, we had mentioned the Pitch Anything book, and I was in pitch mode and I wanted to develop my skill, and I realized that I need to do that. So I was reading books, and I found that great one. It's definitely one of the best books regarding sales. But anyway, I'm implementing some things from the book. My partner and I have some meetings, and, you know, we don't get what we need. And at that point, I realized I'm not going to learn this skill tomorrow. I'm not going to get us to where we need to go and what we're trying to achieve in raising capital. So I need to take a different approach. And so instead of continuing to educate myself, I said, we need a better result. And what we did was we, you know, met George Chanos through you, Manny, which was one of the turning points also for our business. And what that did was get us on the, you know, after various conversations and meetings, we were able to escalate the relationship, and he became, you know, huge in our strategy, and also helping us acquire, you know, some of these shoppers and partners to come into the business. And my point is I recognized that I wasn't the one to single-handedly, you know, get us what we need. It required a different approach. And, you know, I looked in the mirror and admitted that, and moved on to the solution, which was try a different method. And, you know, it's a lot of times it's understanding what you're not good at and finding somebody who is to fill that void.
Yeah. I'm glad. It's funny you bring up George. We just did a podcast yesterday. And so people that are listening, you know, when I actually release the podcast versus when I record it, they're going to be different time frames. So, you know, don't think about this like in that sense. But he brought you up, dude. He segued into the whole thing about making the coronavirus an opportunity and seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And as soon as he segued into that, I started smiling because I knew where he was going. We actually started talking about you and what happened, because part of the conversation was around, you know, how do you come out of this thing? Same type of stuff. And just so people have context, you know, again, because David and I talk so frequently, and he's always kept me informed about how his business is progressing, or, you know, potentially, you know, in serious trouble. You know, obviously the first thing you want to do is try to find some help. And, you know, the only real thing I could do for him was try to help him because I remember our earlier conversation was really about him putting himself in position. Dave, I'm talking about you, getting yourself around people that are already there, that have done it, that are, big time power players that are essentially mentors. And it was that same day that I don't keep remembering in photos, but we were at I believe we were at the Palms and we were having
Yep.
dinner. What the hell's that restaurant called there? Scotch 80?
Scotch 80. Yeah.
Scotch 80. We were having a nice fat steak and some food. And you were, I think, drinking some wine and you're like telling me the story. And I was like, let me call George right now. And sure enough, I set up a meeting for you guys right there. And I remember, just so everybody knows, George was kind of like, yeah, like he didn't know David. And I'm selling George because George and I have built a relationship at this point through our time of getting to know each other. And I'm like, George, you got to meet my bud. He's like, he's a great guy. He really needs some help. He's got a good business. They just need to figure it out. And to David's point, they ended up meeting. They get going. And I remember George was like, I can really help these guys. George was not going to go give him everything and give him money. And it was more about strategic approaches, helping them get in big meetings with big power players and securing funding, which is what started to happen. And it was a wonderful transformation to see, because I remember that was such a pivotal point for David, for you, getting yourself around somebody that became a trusted person and advisor and really helped you kind of reform the business. So I just want people to understand, that stuff doesn't happen by accident. You really got to keep playing offense in this process and step up to the plate so that, when those opportunities come, you take it. Right. And dude, it's been such a blessing to watch you guys continue to build together. And, it's just good, man. It's just a cycle of life of, wanting to help and grow. So spot on there, man.
Yeah, we're very appreciative of your introduction to George, and George Chanos has been a phenomenal addition to the business as a strategic advisor. We've definitely turned things around, and we've overcome hurdles with trying to expand too quickly, and as well as financial capacity. So we've turned things around quite a bit. Had to take a lot of steps internally, repositioning with our partners, addressing some of the debt that we had on the business, and now the coronavirus. So again, George is a very experienced businessman, former attorney general, former attorney. Guy has a great head on his shoulders and has been a tremendous resource. And he's really the first time that we brought somebody in who could give us some real guidance. As our partners before that are not really as involved in the business, which is okay, the friends and family. So George has been the first one to really provide, but also help us build our own strategy to get out of these issues and push forward. So
yeah, and I think one thing that you did well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you pretty much did what he told you to do, right? I mean, he had a lot of strategic moves that you guys had to make. I think, again, going back to what we said kind of earlier in the beginning, was you had to go have difficult conversations and completely reposition this company based off of George's direction. And you did it because you were like, shit, dude, this is what I need to do, right?
yeah, that's exactly right. In the time that you're referring to is when we were attempting to expand, into a larger retail space and grow the business, in brick and mortar. And when we were not successful in identifying and finding the right financial partner for that bigger opportunity, we then had to, get out of that, and we had to readdress things internally. And it did involve several very tough conversations with friends and family regarding their investment and regarding, kind of restructuring the company internally in regards to their partnership. So it all worked out, and everyone, luckily is on board for the bigger picture. And this was a step, that felt like a backward step, but really it allowed us to move 1 to 2 steps forward, which is exactly what we needed. And, that happening over the last couple months, plus bringing on, some new partners, some new funding, and then in addition, this SBA loan, all of which are propelling us into the right direction. And then also our focus, right? Focus is a big deal. like most entrepreneurs, we're really good. We are really good at making things happen. But if we're making things happen that aren't on your top 3 list of things you should be doing and focused on, then you're going the wrong direction. And I found that, I was going the wrong direction, which, the boat follows me. So that was a big problem for us. So we were refocused after pretty much the end of 2019 to focus exactly on what we need to be doing. And we did that exactly as what you're referring to. So we no longer had growth in mind. We simply are focused on our current space, which is 1,300 square feet at Calabasas, and becoming profitable and launching the e-commerce, which is shopthekingdom.com, and growing that because it's a lot more growth potential with, not as extensive capital need. And that's the business plan that we're sticking to. So still today, we've done that. We've launched that website. We focused only on our store. We're cutting expenses, and we're on the road to profitability, which will happen this year.
The recalibration and refocusing was a result of what? Did you, was it the
it was a number of things, but basically, it was good question.
Yeah, I mean, so listen, you kind of, when you refocus, you have to, I think a couple of things happen when you got to realize either through your own good or from somebody else on the outside that says, look, you're going in the wrong direction. You're focusing on the wrong things because somebody can see something differently than you. That's one thing. But, or it's you coming to sense and saying, okay, shit, we are focusing on the wrong thing. So it's like, where do you think, looking back now, you can say, oh shit, I would have done it differently, or I was doing the right thing. I just, it just is the way that it is. Or did you read a fucking book and, all of a sudden, I know you read Traction. Traction was like, well, you got to have your rocks and you got to have your this and you got to have your that. Right. So I'm sure there was something in there that helped you shake it up so you get back to this point where you're like, damn, all right, I know my beeline now. It's game on.
Yeah. It's a cart before the horse type thing. Being an entrepreneur, we got a little too excited, mainly me. I got a little too excited about wanting, to do this on a bigger scale. And, those kind of things take years, not 1.5 years. So we were trying to, get to this, large space and this big enterprise when really we hadn't proven that we can handle it on a small scale. So that was number one, the problem. And, so we had to scratch that expansion plan. And then number two, going back to when we first opened, we were able to get open and we bootstrapped it, meaning we, used all the money that we had plus our personal credit cards. And we didn't raise enough money from friends and family because, at the time, we brought in $1 million. We really needed a lot more than that, but that's all we could get. So we made it happen with that. So because that was how we started off, we were always coming from a deficit, and we, that caused us to have significant debt on the business as we were starting it. So, things to remember for an entrepreneur out there would be to really have a financing strategy and stick to it, because we didn't have that, and we had been fighting against the current for 3 years because of that mistake from the beginning.
As I hear you say that, I don't even know, like, I'm just being, coming straight from the gut. If you had been fully financed, right, I don't think it would have been as helpful for you as the lessons that you've learned through what you've gone through in the last 3 years, dude, to get to this point today. I don't think it's as valuable. I think you probably lose business. You might have, something doesn't go right. But I think the true grit of the entrepreneur dream and the resiliency to keep fucking fighting in all these adversities are what make successful companies. And I say that because, for example, before we got on this podcast, before I called you first time, I had watched a quick little podcast from this guy, Todd Jones. It was literally an 18-minute segment, but this guy founded LifeLock. which was like an identity theft company in 2005. He sold it. He literally sold it for 2 point something billion dollars a couple of years back, right? And he was sort of saying the same thing, really about building a couple things, grinding it out, having the grit up front, wearing all the hats. And golly, it's like, dude, you see the consistency in the stories. But one thing that made me think about that topic as well was when you talk about your employees, one thing that I found fascinating that he said that he found so much pride in was not just about profiting from the business, but was also about the social responsibility that he had. More importantly, that social responsibility to his not his customers, his employees. When he went public, I think he said 2012, when he went public in 2012, 10 or 12, he made 100 of his employees became millionaires when his company went public. He said there was no better feeling that he had than when he made 100 of his employees millionaires because he gave them stock options in his company. And it's funny because he says in the same old podcast, he says that our investors came to me and said, "Are you crazy?" He's like, "Why would you give these people stock options? And they don't even know what stock options are." He's like, "Well, wouldn't it be our job to help them understand it?" And dude, I thought that was powerful. So I love how you put the people first. It was very important. And I'm sure there's probably great upside for them there as well. So I just, I digress, but I thought that was powerful.
I love that. And I think, that's the kind of people that Jason and I are. And, we believe we've got lifers working for us. And these are people that we never want to leave. And, that means a great deal to me because it's the right thing to do. When someone is there for you and they're a lifer, to have, I can totally understand and see where that comment comes from on that's the greatest feeling that he, experienced. I love that. And, it's not a competition, when you're trying to build a team and build a business and just in life, you want to build people up around you. You're not there to break them down to make yourself look better. That's an insecurity. What I strive to do is to make people around me better. And if I make them so much better and they leave me, then at least I know I built them up and they're going to be on their way and I can't be mad at them. So I don't have ill feelings towards anything like that, but I hope that, I'm able to do that exactly to my people one day, which is, provide them a financial opportunity, with this business or just with themselves. And, that's a big part of the pressure of being a leader and also a business owner is how do you balance that and how do you, get your people the best they can be. And that's life. That's what you always want.
Yeah. And I think the other day after our conversation too, after I grabbed myself a nice burrito, because I was craving one, man, that's what was so good. And I had to get it. You said next phase was kind of, really kind of organizing the team and figuring out how you make that next giant leap, which I guess we'll have to save it for the next podcast.
Yeah. Approaching 3 years from us. I mean, I'll leave it with, we as a business, it's kind of understandable to maybe not be profitable in your first 1, 2, 3 years, but beyond that, you're in trouble if you're not profitable. So we're about there. We expect to be profitable within our 3rd year, and where we're focused on is that number 1, number 2, e-commerce strategy, and growing the business that way while having a store/showroom in Calabasas. Keeping expenses low and growing the team so we can build the business. And really, the kingdom is an experience in itself. So what we want to provide is an experience to our in-store shoppers, but now with the ability to have a website and shoppable, we want to provide a unique shopping experience for anybody who wants to shop at the kingdom, because everyone knows you've got choices where to shop online, websites, all that. So what makes us different? And that's what, Jason and I are constantly focused on, is improving our DNA and how do we make this successful and provide the best service plus product for the customer and a wonderful experience. So that's the journey that we're on in our 3rd year to build this business and continue to build it. And it takes, it takes a lot of elements, but people is always, I think, number one.
Amazing. Well, look, dude, I mean, I could hold you hostage all friggin' night. I think when I said it's going to be longer than 30 minutes, I think you got a little scared. We're already over an hour now. So it goes quick, dude. Just like that.
I
Just
love
like
it.
that.
I love it, Manny. Well, thank you for having me. I,
Well,
I
hold on.
appreciate it.
Hold your horses, man. Hold your horses. First of
Oh,
all,
whoa, whoa. Okay.
it's important. It's important once again that we realize that, you're starting to come out and share more of your story, which is important. Again, I think I've been saying it's like, this is going to be so valuable down the road, especially with the track that you're on, number one. And then, on top of that, to get the insider's peak of, building a company, I think is a lot of fun. So with that in mind, my last question for you before you hit the road back into your fabulous Calabasas area lifestyle, um, what would you say has been the biggest lesson that the streets have taught you? Let's just say the business school of the streets, especially as you're going through it now. What's the biggest lesson that you've been taught along the way?
Love it. Great question. And it's actually pretty easy for me to answer. There's a lot of things, but I will go with, you can't be afraid to fail.
Hmm.
You cannot be afraid to fail in being an entrepreneur, because you're going to fail. It's just, what do you do with that experience? Do you learn from it, or do you just stay down out for the count? And that's the difference between somebody who makes it and who doesn't. Because if you're scared, you don't want to fail, it's just not going to happen. So I fail all the time. I have gotten better and better at admitting what happened, at facing that failure in the mirror and making a decision, a definitive decision on how to progress. And that's my number one rule: is you cannot be afraid to fail. And that's life.
Man, right there. See, that's the mic drop part. But I don't have a mic. I'd have to drop my headset, and then shit would just it would start breaking. And I'm not. Oh man, see, it's like
What about you? What do you think?
for
Well,
you.
no, for you. But then, maybe relative
It's
to
you just
people
my
around.
show, man. You can't fucking start flipping it back on me, man.
Yeah, but you got to have some advice for the people out there. I mean, you've been through a lot. You know a lot. You know more than me.
That's not true. That's not true. Well, what's the question? What are you asking me?
What's the one kind of the one? I think it's more or less, what's the one rule that you go by, or your piece of advice for being an entrepreneur? I think that's kind of what the question was.
Well, here's the validity to this, and I think, as I step away from being a coward for a period of time, I remember everybody kind of remember I've always been an entrepreneur, right? From a younger age, trying to figure out business, to when I had my restaurants that you helped me get from back in the day, to losing that and then retreating back into this really, scared, comfortable place for, let's just say the next several years. Now, as part of that, I would say that, when I got sober, I started, working on myself, reading books. I wrote a book. I never really got into the business growth, even though you could say that there was a lot of entrepreneurial activities that were happening, but I never started to actually build a business, because I took a right turn and I went in the direction of working underneath people that were going to help me develop my skills and get better and become more of who I am. And I've continued to do that to this point. And thank God for coronavirus. And I have sentiment for everybody out there who's been affected by it and who, potentially may have lost somebody. So, my heart goes out to you, but this has been a brand new wake up call for me to get back into my entrepreneurial spirit, because I have admittingly been, scared. And I think because it's normal, uh, I burned myself. I wasn't burned. I burned myself back in my last entrepreneurial endeavors in the businesses when I had 3 restaurants. And so you naturally, like a bad relationship or some sort of a bad, high profile emotional event, you tend to want to be nervous and afraid. And I've been that way. I've kind of been hiding under the shell. And now it's time for me to kind of expose myself and go back out full blast again. So that's my answer, dude. I mean, I think it is getting out of, I think ego has a lot to do with it. I've really been investigating, how
Yeah.
that on a positive end and a negative end, really is about putting myself on a pedestal and then putting myself below the average in comparison to what's above me. So really finding out how to get control of that and step into the essence. And it's a constant battle, man. I mean, like you've said, it's a daily grind. Everything wants to come at you to really put you on your ass. So at least for me, again, everybody, I think other people out there, I think there's probably a very small fraction of the people that have just like this natural born optimism. I've had to work for it and earn it to stay that way. And I love the progress. I think that's really been my key pillar for me. And so, I kind of went around the question there, but I think it's good to set up a good answer, because I don't want to give an answer without context as to, what the question was that you asked me about being an entrepreneur, because that is my entrepreneur journey. And now we're re-going, man, a born again entrepreneur. Right. So I consider this a rebirth for myself. And here I am starting. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I've consulted lots of people, yourself included, guys like George, other, top business, you say titans in multiple different industries about where to start. And they're just, dude, just go. And here they're right. I'm like, just go, dude. Like, stop trying to figure out all the fucking answers and just get in there and start doing it. And
your level of focus and commitment is way different than it was, 8 years ago, whenever the restaurants were a play. And it's night and day. So whatever you put your mind to, you'll make happen and you'll succeed.
Yeah, you gotta talk about, that's back in the day when I was high on Molly and drinking them beers and those vodka tonics, dude. Those were the
A little bit of gambling, all that fun stuff, right?
yeah, man, that whole 9 yards, dude. I love those stories. Just like anything that, like you said, taught me so much, right? And I wouldn't have my journey any other way. I wouldn't,
Yeah, well, positive mindset's everything, and you've come 360, and it's a different, Manny today than it was back then, which I knew you very well then, and I know you very, very well now. So again, whatever it is, your mindset's there. You're not stopping, and I admire that about you.
Well, brother, that's why we're best boys, man, and that's why we have admiration for each other, and we continue to fucking climb, dude. I mean, I confidently say we're beasts. Like, we're just beasts, dude. It's like, I love that. I love the certainty in our ability, because of who we've become and what we work on day in and day out. People right now, I can't stress the importance enough about like how badly I'm learning right now more than ever. Like, I can't get off my computer screen in preparation for next moves and what's in the pipeline, and jumping into things right now that have come up with this whole pandemic. You have a much more clear focus because you've been in business, but I think evolution is key. Reinvention is necessity. And we're always evolving, and that's the most important part. And that's again, I'm a freak when it comes to growth. So let's keep it up, brother. Let's keep it up, man. Let's keep going.
Cool, man.
Listen, you're awesome, brother. I loved having you here. I'm glad you got on to share with us. Make sure you all pay attention to David's journey. I'm going to pressure him in a healthy way to keep sharing his story and documenting his process, because he needs to. And then we'll definitely have him back on here, because it's going to be more goodness that comes from this story as we continue to move forward. Rock and roll, David.
Thanks for having me. Have a good night, my man.
You're the man, champ.